Hey YouTubey, so this is Liloken again. So there's been some controversy going on on the YouTube community about a well-known artist who's also a pagan who was just convicted of, convicted I should say, he was accused of possession of child pornography. So I don't necessarily so much want to touch on that because we have judges and juries and we have a whole system to deal with that stuff. So I'm not going to touch on that. However, the thing that I am going to touch on is those of us, and I happen to be one of them, who are surviving being victims of child molestation and sexual assault. And, you know, at first I was hesitant to do this video because there's a certain amount of shame, and this basically anybody in the entire world can see this video. And do I really want anybody with access to the internet to know this? And, you know, I struggled with that. And, yeah, it's a little uncomfortable. But the truth of the matter is, if there's somebody out there who has been a victim of child molestation or sexual assault, I don't want them to be ashamed of that, because it's not your fault. And you know, we all have demons inside of us. We all have things that have happened to us, and rather than let them control us, we need to be able to control them and grow from them. And that is, in my opinion, one of the true things that we should do, exploring whatever spiritual path you may believe in, is to grow and to become a whole person. The other part of this is, you know, sometimes we hear about people talking about the shadow side of us, or the people who, you know, get in touch with the dark side of humanity and learn from that, or maybe they consider themselves some kind of a dark witch or something like that. And you know, yeah, that's not real. I mean, that's just, there's what we consider to be the darkness or whatever. Those are the dragons that we have to slay. It's what our mythology has pictured as the unseen, the unknown, the cavern, the things that we have to go into. And once we go into those things and we survive them and we come out of them, is where we gain the strength. And those dragons don't take the form of, you know, some dark force or whatever. They're actual real things that happen to people, and people somehow survive those and come out. That is what meeting this dragon or going into that cavern and fighting and coming out alive is. It's not some play act of putting on some kind of a dark robe and acting like you're some kind of a dark guy running around. That's a game. That's play. That's pretend. Real strength is for people who have experienced stuff like this. Go in, slay that dragon, come back out, and live, and then help the people around them who have experienced this. So, it's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this video. I had thought about possibly creating some kind of an online support group or whatever, but then I also realized that, you know, I mean, I went through a lot of therapy and recovering from stuff like this, my own kind of personal growth. And I think that that's what each individual really needs to do. They need to seek help, professional help, reach out to people who are familiar with this, and actually go through the process of healing it. It's there was a book, I forget what it was called, but it was essentially the title was The Invisible Wound. because that's what it is. It's not a visible wound. It's an invisible wound that's inside of us that, we need to recover from and we need to heal. So that's one part of this video. The other part of the video that I wanted to address was the other side. Those people out there who are victims of their own desire, their own, I don't really want to say perverse, but people who may be struggling with, dealing with, being somebody who is turned on by certain images that our culture finds inappropriate. And it's a disease itself, and it needs to be addressed, and it needs to, professionals need to help you to go through that, so you don't end up being someone who victimizes someone else. So it's an uncomfortable topic for anybody to talk about, and especially in a lot of the communities, a lot of the pagan communities, because we consider ourselves to be so open and free about sexuality, and that's not our problem, that's the Christians and other religions' problems, because that's how they view sexuality, as a sin. And then when it kind of happens to us this way, it's kind of like, wow, I think we feel a certain amount of shame about that, because we are so, most of us, not everyone, but some of us are pretty open with our sexuality. So it's a difficult thing for us to deal with, and especially those of us who have experienced it, maybe firsthand, secondhand, maybe we know somebody who's gone through an experience like this, to have it kind of touch home, to realize that we're not as protected as we thought we were from the forces of the outside world. They still every so often creep in. So that's just kind of what I wanted to talk about. I don't necessarily wanted to talk about the individual who was accused of this as much as it is. I just wanted to reach out to anybody who possibly is recovering from experiencing something like this, and to encourage them to seek help. And we'll get through this just like we've gotten through everything else. So this has been Lionel Oaken, and blessed be.